Recall them. Make we talk about Martin Luther King. Make we talk about Fidel Castro. Make we talk about Miss Rosa Parks. They've been fighting for our rights. Recall Che Guevara, Malcolm X and Gandhi. Recall Mugabe. They've been fighting for our rights. Recall them. Selassie, I say recall them. Let's recall them.
Having and bearing sanctions banning us from Europe, we are not Europeans. We have not asked for any inch of Europe or any square inch of that territory. So, Blair, keep your England and let me keep my Zimbabwe.
The African continent have had great leaders. Some were celebrated and some were not. Many unsung African heroes have died without Africans recognizing their greatness. Meet our unsung hero of the day. Only on African Eyes Radio, your revolutionary radio.
The land is ours, we give it to whom we please. It's not the business of Britain, you see, to tell us who to give land and who not. Having and bearing sanctions banning us from Europe, we are not Europeans. We have not asked for any inch of Europe or any square inch of that territory. So, Blair, keep your England and let me keep my Zimbabwe.
He is a despot, he's a dictator, he's a tyrant, he's any word you want to throw at him, but he's something more than that. He's the wrong messenger with the right message.
To tell you the truth, in politics you have to have an inbuilt system of shock absorbers, and I just don't care what they say, as long as I know I'm right. So they can say anything in their papers, damage me in every way possible, as long as the people I lead are behind me and approve of what we are doing. That's what matters. The rest of the world will one day, you see, be persuaded to believe we were right when we resorted to armed struggle. You cannot fight these grievances by pleading for their rectification. You can only do so by getting to the root cause of the problem, and that's the problem of power. To use petrol bombs as far back as 1960, and we were the first to use them, but purely as a means of pressure, not really to try and destroy life, but to intimidate the authorities into conceding, as it were, to our wishes.
Did it work?
It didn't work. Then we had demonstrations and strikes. She participated in one of the best organized demonstrations in the country, the women's demonstration. Thousands of them were sent to prison in Salisbury, and thousands sent to prison in Bulawayo and Gwelo and Umtali in 1961. I'm not a trained soldier such. I'm a revolutionary nevertheless. We are fighting a war which is a very difficult one, but in spite of the difficulties posed by the enemy, we take care not to make people unnecessarily suffer. No one is fighting an individual war. All our fighters are fighting collectively under a command that derives its authority from the central committee of the party. This question has been asked before, and I think what people would want to know is whether those who have committed genocide and massacres will become our friends tomorrow. I don't know what the Allies would have answered if if a similar question had been asked in 1945, 1946, whether Hitler and Mussolini would become the allies of Churchill and Roosevelt. Our answer is that those who are architects of this genocide and massacres surely must, on the basis of moral and legal principles, be brought to trial. But this does not mean that the followers, the ordinary person, must be tried. Those who have hatched the plan, the treason, as a result of which massacres of all kinds have been perpetrated against our people and against the people of Mozambique, people of Zambia, Angola and Botswana, surely must be brought to book for their crimes. Bishop Zorewa is a mere puppet, an unwitting puppet for that matter. And just now he claims he has power, but we know he hasn't got that power. We have appealed to him to reverse his stand and correct the stance he has adopted so far.
So he could remain free as a Democrat in opposition to you?
Sure, he could, as long as he's prepared not to continue, you see, upholding the evil system there is. I suppose this conference gives him a chance to say his repentance and ask for forgiveness of his sins. Now, in the process of transference of power, it has to be recognized that the vicious force that minority has depended upon has to be demobilized, and a completely new force based on the fact that the people's interests have got to be safeguarded has got to emerge. We are not saying that only our troops must constitute the army. We are saying that alongside our troops there must come acceptable elements from the other side. And this will constitute the national army of the country. The Zulu Scouts have to go, the Grey Scouts, these are the mercenaries, these are the ugly features, the unacceptable elements which have to go of necessity. All those commissioned officers who have been ideologically committed to UDI and have supported treason have no right to be in command of a new army whatsoever.
You wouldn't be prepared to accept some sort of formula whereby Joshua Nkomo's forces perhaps looked after the western part of Zimbabwe, where your own ZANU forces largely looked after the eastern sector, and where there was some joint army in the central sector?
We are thinking in terms of one army, and the Patriotic Front is going to emerge with one army. There will therefore not be any sector for ZAPO or a sector for ZANU. We are one, and that we shall remain. Well, this is what it means. It means that the people will have to make their choice in due course.
Would you be prepared to be a number two to Mr. Point of
We
achieving
haven't been fighting for individual benefit. We've been fighting to get power into the hands of the people. In other words, we have been fighting a people's struggle. And in the course of fighting for this struggle, some of our leaders, colleagues have died. Others survive, but the people continue all the time. And so it's the interest of the people really that is the decisive factor. That's the paramount issue. I'm prepared to be whatever the people want me to be. If the bishop won the elections, which are free and fair, you might as well consider the devil would win elections in heaven. We do not ever envisage a situation where the bishop could win elections which are free and fair.
We equally reject attempts to prescribe new rights that are contrary to our values, norms, traditions, and beliefs. We are not gays.
Well, the UK is trying to teach us how to run our country naturally. We resist that. We do not accept. We are not a British colony any longer. We are not the only developing country with problems. There are many countries with problems. Zimbabwe is far better than the average developing country. You come to Zimbabwe and you will see we are not a collapsing economy. We have difficulties at the moment, but certainly we have a strong asset base and we will not collapse. But when we have difficulties, you see, Britain has no right at all to try and suggest to the rest of the world that we are a failure. Nor have they a right to try and suggest to us what we should do. We are not an extension of Britain, we have said. And so this is the main area of difference between them and ourselves. If there is any country we should now be considered for sanctions, it's Britain for interfering in the domestic affairs of Zimbabwe. Well, the British have no standards apparently to guide them, and if they do, they would be misfiring. And since I'm here, I will take care of them. The elections, we've been announcing the stages we're taking. We have a delimitation commission which is working on delimiting the constituencies. As soon as they are through, we will announce the date. But we can announce the date before. But next month, the elections should take place.
That was our unsung hero of the day. Meet me again next time as I'll bring to you another unsung hero of the day. Until then, stay tuned to African Eyes Radio, your revolutionary radio.